Hi, I'm Adam Jennings, and this is Awaiting Approval, a podcast about the messy human side of creative leadership. Today, I'm joined by Venessa Bennett, Global Director of UX at Dye Durham, for a relaxed, two-way conversation about her journey, the lessons she's learned, and what it takes to lead with creativity and honesty. Vanessa, hi, welcome to the show.
Hi, Adam. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm good. You're very welcome. I'm really looking forward to this one. Having seen you speak at Product Design Week last year in London, I've been chomping at the bit to get an opportunity for us to collaborate. So I'm really pleased that you're here. To start us off, and for people to get to know a little bit more about you as a person, if we were meeting to record this in person today, where would you take me and what would you order to drink?
Oh, depends on the time of day, but I'll probably take you. I love a hotel bar. So and also it depends on the time of year. If it's the summer, I would take you to the Standard, and they have a really nice kind of rooftop situation with nice cocktails. They also do nibbles as well, so Mexican kind of inspired nibbles. But if it was winter, oh, actually, the Martini bar in the Barbican is quite a nice one as well. So yeah,
I
that's
love
what we
it.
would be doing. Oh, what would we be drinking? Interesting. Um, if it's a good cocktail menu, it will probably be something with mezcal and ginger in it because I love those flavors. Um, so you can see a Mexican kind of theme here. Um,
Yeah.
if it is a standard kind of bar and I'm not really feeling the cocktail menu, it will probably be a vodka, soda, and lime because we don't drink our calories.
Brilliant. I love it. Well, I'll raise a metaphorical Mexican styled cocktail to cheer you on for this episode. And continuing that theme of kind of getting to know you, is there something in your desk or in the room near you that just tells a little bit more about you?
Oh gosh. Okay, so there's a lot of mess here. There is hand cream in the corner. There is lip gloss as well, just to keep moisturized. But there is also a cup of tea and a big bottle of water as well. So I'm always have the essentials nearby, as well as pens and post-its that are over there in the other corner. And I have a standing desk, so I have the intention of having a lot of standing meetings, but the reality is I'm sitting down most of the time. Um, so we've got intention and reality on my desk at the moment.
I love it. And that's everything that awaiting approval is about. That authentic, open honesty. I love it. And I've always wanted to have a standing desk. Never had the opportunity to have one until a few years back when I was on contract with Fantasy, and I went out to their San Francisco office just before they were decommissioning it, and they had these enormous, amazing rising desks with the Fantasy logo like embedded within the woodwork and everything. And because they were decommissioning the office, anyone that wanted to take one of these desks, more than welcome to take them. But I couldn't figure out a way of getting one of these onto a plane back to the UK, so I had to pass up on that opportunity. Otherwise, I would have had a standing desk, and that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it whilst sitting down. Um, when was the last time you used pen and paper?
Oh, I use it all the time. I'm really old school. So I'm the type of person that needs to sketch something or write something down physically before committing it digitally. So yeah, I've always got a sketchbook with me, and a pen. So yeah, I was doing a whiteboard session earlier this week. So whether that's included, but I'm very tactile in I'm always doing something with my hands or playing with my
Mm.
hands, and I literally need to write something down before committing to it digitally for some reason. It's like almost like taking the vision that's in my head, writing onto paper and kind of like, okay, that makes sense, and then translating it to something else. So always using pen and paper.
Resonates completely with me. It's exactly the same thing. I find it much quicker to whip a pen out and write a note about something before then putting that into, say, notes on my phone or in an email or what have you. It just seems quicker to get from brain to result in a
Yeah,
physical sense.
I think there's an intention there, right? It feels a bit more intentional there's a
Mm.
connection because obviously you've got that pen rather than just typing. So there is something about it, and I think there's something about that thought process of sketching it out. And I quite like the throwaway nature of it. Like you just do a sketch and then it's like, oh, that's not quite right. I'll do another one. So I almost use it as a way to iterate my ideas and kind of flesh it out first. So that's why I really like sketching. They're the messiest, worst sketches ever, but that's why I really like sketching and writing.
If you could see the notepad that's by my desk right now, there are more doodles than notes. But I think it's really important. I think it's a way I'm unofficially diagnosed, if that is even a way, full on ADHD. And so for me, doodling is a way to focus.
Yeah,
Bizarrely, it's a way to concentrate because my hand is doing something else, and another part of my brain is focused on the doodle, whereas the bit that needs to listen or take in or interact then has sort of space in
yeah,
order to do that.
yeah.
So I'm completely with you on that. I'd love for you to just take the next few minutes to go right back to the beginning of your career and take us on a kind of whistle stop bullet point journey from there to where you are now. It doesn't have to be every single place, but kind of key milestones that took you on your journey all the way through.
Yeah, I always describe my journey. I find it really boring, my journey, compared to other people. But yeah, it's more of a traditional journey, I guess. So I started at finished uni, did graphic information design at the University of Westminster. And my first job was in a digital agency, so Metia. I don't know if they still exist anymore, but a digital agency, and their biggest client was Microsoft. So we was doing a lot of kind of reports and other kind of side projects for Microsoft. I stayed there around about a year, kind of felt like this is not quite what I want to do. I don't know. I just felt I didn't want to do digital, and there is a full circle moment where I go around the houses. But my next job was at a company called Steer Davis Gleave, which was a transport consultancy, and their biggest clients were like councils and TFL, and we were part of a lot of the kind of bids and the planning before a project gets approved. So fun fact, I was involved in the consultation for the Northern Line extension, which has now been built. In Battersea, so I was part of that kind of consultation materials. So designers design all of that stuff, and one of the things that we were doing was journey planners. So this was before City Mapper, before kind of phone apps. There was like websites where you would go to plan your journeys. So we started doing a lot of those digital journey planners, and that's where I discovered my passion for digital and digital design. And I was like the junior, so it was kind of like giving the youngest person in the team, because quote unquote cool, to do all the digital stuff. So I started doing a lot more digital stuff and realized actually this is what I want to do full time, well, most of my time. So I went to another company, which was an agency, but they did PPC and they pay per click stuff, and they also had comparison websites on the side. And I was working on the comparison website. So I think that's where I really cut my teeth in working with alongside engineers, product people, kind of doing that really close process and that iterative process. And also designing, like we had to work quite fast, like come up with an idea and like publish that next day and things like that. So cut my teeth there. I'm not going to go through my whole CV, but essentially, I really started moving with the times and how the industry had changed. I mean, we can have a whole conversation, an hour-long conversation about job titles, but where it goes from digital designer, web designer, UX, UI. So I think throughout my career, what I've always done is really looking at the trends and how I need to almost shape myself and my skill sets to what the industry is asking for. So as digital became more of a thing and UX became more of a thing and UI became more of a thing, I started really kind of shaping myself into those areas. And then I think kind of in the middle of my career, that's when I was just like, actually I want to be more of a manager, more of a leader. And to be honest with you, I mean, we back in the day, in order to get more money, you almost had to go into management. So my initial drive was, quite frankly, more money. How can I get more money? But I actually discovered a passion for management and leadership and growth. So probably in the last like 5+ years or so, I've taken that management leadership role a little bit more seriously and gone into pure management roles. And yeah, I think I've discovered the sweet spot, and I think what I'm here to do on this earth sounds really cheesy. Um, but like I really am passionate about growth. I'm passionate about getting design in at that kind of leadership exec level. And I think that's where that design leadership can really thrive. And I thrive in those kind of environments. Um, so yeah, I feel like I've been talking for ages, but that's roughly my my journey and how and where I am today.
I love that. And I'd love to like sort of dive into various pieces because there's so much to unpack there. I think the one thing that's really intriguing is the move away from digital to then come back to it. And do you think that was because you experienced different sort of facets of digital? Like there was one bit that wasn't so interesting and then you discovered something else and that pulled you back in? Or do you think it was something that was just sort of like it was kind of dormant there all the while? You were kind of in the back of your head, maybe always knew you were going to come back to it.
It's a good question. I think it was probably the agency environment wasn't quite for me, and the
Right.
in-house environment felt a bit more comfortable. I think there's something about having that time and really being able to build that domain knowledge in an in-house environment, um, versus agency where you kind of brought in a project, you do the project, then you're on to the next thing. Whereas in an in-house environment, and this was like years ago, it's probably changed now, but you're really able to have a product, launch that, iterate on it, develop it, and then maybe you'll do another one. So we would do different journey planners for different councils, and we would evolve it. So I guess it's that master of craft that I was able to do, and I think that's what I enjoyed, and that's why I ended up going back into digital, but also in a different kind of way, because a lot of the roles from then were in in-house teams, teams where you're able to like work on a product, nurture it, iterate on it. So I think it's that nurturing side of a product that I like. I like to see it through to the end. So yeah, I think that's why I did that full circle. But it's all that I think one of the key things is discovering about yourself. And this is what I
Mm,
tell a lot of direct reports and people that I mentor. The key thing in your career development is actually knowing yourself really well, knowing what environments you kind of thrive in and what environments are not for you, even what kind of companies you thrive in versus what's not for
mm.
you. And I'm not conscious of it, I'm reflecting on it now, but, I think I did that quite early on in my career and was able to that's why I was able to almost just shift and maneuver as quickly as I did.
Mm. I want to come back to that aspect of recognizing when a place or an organization isn't for you. But before we do, you mentioned about the nurturing of a product cycle and a project cycle as well. Is there something about that now you've moved into more managerial or into managerial roles and that nurturing aspect is there, but it's people instead of project? Is there a difference in how you approach that nurturing, or is it actually sort of fundamentally the same?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Uh, it will always be different because people are unpredictable. I think products are more predictable
Right.
than people. I think one of the things that I advocate for, and what I talk about quite a bit is to be able to use those design skills that we've learned as designers in people problems. So
Mm,
that is almost how I practice my practice is try and apply
mm,
some of those, I guess, frameworks to people. Um, it's not a hard and fast rule, and it doesn't always work. But I think with people, there is an unpredictability there, and you're always tackling. I think what I like about working with people and being a people leader is the problem solving aspect. And there's always something that shocks you or surprises you, or you have to tackle in a slightly different way. You can't just copy paste. Whereas I feel like with product to a certain extent, and designing products, you kind of can copy and paste something and reuse something that you've already done. And it will be mildly successful. It might not be completely successful, but you'll get a level of success. Whereas with people, there's this kind of unpredictability that keeps you on your toes, which I find really interesting because I then want to understand, well, why are you doing this? Why are you behaving in the way you're behaving? Why are you not understanding? Is it me? Is it my communication? Or do we need to try something else? So I think I like that aspect. And I think there's no joy greater joy than seeing someone grow and develop and what their journey is, not just in the organization that I'm working with them, but outside of that and seeing that journey. I think it's just and having being part of that journey is just it's nice, it's cozy, it's I don't know. It just gives me joy.
I get it completely. Having, like you mentored on different platforms and people, working in the same organization as me, and there's something incredibly fulfilling about creating something and getting it out and live and up and running and
Mm,
finishing a project and completing that. But for me at least, and I feel like it might be the same for you, the buzz of seeing someone that you have sat with and talked through and supported go on to then achieve something amazing, um, because of their own effort, because of their own work, but in some small part, in some small building block, because of those conversations they had with you, the um, like it's an awful phrase that's coming to mind, but the return on investment, that's not right at all. But you know what I mean? Like what am I trying to say? The reward, as the mentor, to see them go off
yeah.
and achieve something is far greater than, for me at least, than that completion of a project or a launch of a product or whatever it might be.
Yeah,
Um,
I think when I think about it, there's something about creating a legacy, because products live and die. They
right.
don't normally last um over years and years. But there's something about you imparting in a person and then passing on your knowledge to someone else, and there's a legacy there that starts being created, right? As cheesy as it
Mm,
sounds, but there's something about that that feels satisfying and rewarding rather than launching a product, meeting some kind of metric, and in a year's time you're dismantling that and have to redesign it for whatever reason. So I think that's what it is that longevity and that legacy, um
mm,
that feels nice.
Have you had good mentors as you go through your career?
um Yes and no. I think what drives me is the bad managers that I've had, ironically.
Right.
Um,
Right.
like I think everyone's had a bad manager or a bad kind of interaction. And I think that's what drives me is I don't want to be the bad manager. Like I don't want to have that lasting impact of having a manager that's really bad. So that's what drives me, but what I kind of normally do is essentially I just have a network of people that I tap into and I speak to regularly. So I don't necessarily have have had mentors, but I think what I find beneficial is asking really targeted questions to someone who has expertise and learning off them, or just asking the question of how have you achieved this, and give me some advice in that. I find that more useful than having a traditional kind of mentorship relationship. But everything, I think again, you have to work out what works for you. Because some
Mm,
people like that mentorship relationship, but I like to have a hive mind, create a hive mind of people, and maybe it's the UX designer in me, but I like to almost see how people have approached the same thing in a different way and work out well, what works right for me rather than just one person's opinion. Um,
mm,
but yeah, it's probably the UX designer in me that that always wants to create a user research project out of everything.
Do you know what? It works. There's a reason we do it in UX. There's a, and I think, if you kind of zoom out and look at the bigger picture, humankind learns from the mistakes and successes of everybody within that. And so
Yeah.
you take that hugely diverse range of experiences and combine the data from all of that together to collectively move forward. And so it makes perfect sense that rather than having one Obi-Wan Kenobi type mentor that knows everything, you listen to a whole bunch, and you much like any kind of, I don't know, Mission Impossible movie or whatever, you're picking the team members that are relevant for what you need right
Yeah.
now. And that makes perfect sense. Hi. If what we're talking about in this episode is resonating with you, the challenges faced are the ones that are in front of you right now, the path they've taken is your dream career path, whatever it may be, stick around until the end of this episode to find out how you can work directly with me to level up your leadership skills. Get 30 years worth of experience downloaded into your skill set in just 4 weeks. At the same time, meet amazing other design leaders as part of your cohort. Thanks for listening. I'll see you at the end. When you think about that bullet point career history that you took us through, is there a point in time that you would go back to yourself at the age that you are then, but knowing what you know now? And if there is, what would you say?
Oh gosh. Hmm. Yes, I think I would have gone back to those early days. I think one of the things that I really struggled with was second guessing myself and being really unsure about the designs that I've created or what I've produced. Um, and yeah, I think I'd just be like, don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. I think I'd basically say don't overthink it, rely on your gut instinct. I think a lot of the time I've just ignored my gut instinct when I know my gut instinct is right, and just go for it and be a bit more bolder and a bit more braver. I think I spent a lot of time just doing, and it's classic designer, right? You do like 10 options of something because you're really not sure, when actually probably the first 2 or 3 options were the one that you should have gone through. And I would do that. And then over the years, I've kind of honed to just go with my gut instinct on what's right and what isn't right. So I'd say that to myself. I just think the amount of times that I've spent just being in my head when I just need to just go for it and just get on with it. I would have been, I don't know, a lot more advanced in my career probably, and more chilled out.
What you're saying makes perfect sense. And how would you start to help someone listen to their gut instinct? What are the kind of signals? I know it may be different for everybody, but like for you, what are the signals of, oh, hang on a minute, I need to sort of check in with this feeling that's happening here. Is it a physical thing? Is it a mental thing?
For me, it's a mental thing. For me, it's like there's multiple voice not there's a couple of voices that are going on in the head. It's like the classic like angel and devil on your shoulder type
Right.
thing, right? What I do when I'm designing or I'm thinking something through is I'll go through every single scenario, and then you kind of question that scenario, and then sometimes,
Mm.
especially in those early days, I was really getting in that loop of the negative side of things. But what if this? But what if that? And I think I don't know. I think one of it is thinking about putting in those structures that really help you stop you from second guessing. Part of it is just suggesting it and doing it. I think the other part is showing stuff early and making sure that you're on the right track. Um, because I think another person, having the counsel of another person can really pull you out of being in your head. So I almost wish I did that more, because sometimes it definitely felt when I was younger, I've been given this task. I need to spend all this time working on this task. And if I bother someone, someone's going to think that I don't know what I'm doing. So you almost just keep mulling it over, when actually what I should have done is sketch something out. Am I on the right track? Then I can move on. So I think when I'm like coaching someone through it, it's it's always really that conversation of get people involved early, like make sure you're on the right track, confirm things. And if you're confirming things, it's not really evidence of that you don't know what you're doing. It's actually you're asking really good, intriguing questions, and people would
Mm,
rather you do that than you just wait to the end, to the last minute, and then have all these questions. So that's what I coach my team or someone who's going through this with through. So it's just asking those questions, get people involved. Also, just sketching it out as well normally helps. So sketching it out with
mm,
someone else and going through that scenario normally helps because you're like, okay, this is right. We are meant to. This is what I thought. So it's almost confirming your thoughts with someone else
mm,
helps get out of your head because and the more you do it, because I think the other thing is you have to practice it as well. So the more you do it, the more confident you get, and then you're like, okay, I know, I know I'm doing it now. I've been right this time and that time and that time. I just need to get on with it. So you kind of build that confidence. But as annoying as it sounds when you give this type of advice, it is about practicing
mm,
and build it. It's like a muscle, right? You have to keep
mm.
practicing it, and then you'll get stronger, and then you'll get better. Um, and that's with a lot of things in life.
I completely hear you, and I find it fascinating the way that pretty much every design leader that I speak with who has achieved, a certain sort of level within their career or above has the same thing where they have honed that skill to be able to check in and say, "Hmm, there's something here that isn't quite what it appears to be, and I need to figure that out." And then what I find fascinating is the way the variance in the way that we all approach that, or the different ways that we all approach that.
Mm,
The idea of spotting it and then double checking with someone, asking someone, like just checking in and getting an outside perspective every now and again. I really love that. And I do that. I also check in with my body. Sometimes if there's something I'm not sure of, I feel it in my gut or I feel it in my chest. There's just a thing.
mm,
I can't even really describe it, but there's a feeling of, there's something not quite right here.
yeah.
And I did a project a few years ago with a famous comedy writer called John Finnemore, who writes comedy radio programs and all this kind of thing. And it was a packaging design job, and he brought into the studio and showed me these huge moleskin notebooks where he writes by hand his thought process. And so it's like a conversation with himself.
Mm,
Oh, at this point in this episode, then such and such a character would go onto the plane, and I think that would be funny because if they're on the plane, then X, Y, Z, rather than if they're in the airport, then A, B, C. Yes,
mm,
yes, that works. Like that's literally how he kind of writes out that thought process with a whole bunch of doodles and arrows and sort of routes that never were, and then routes that made it to the show. And I thought that was also really fascinating, and it feels like a kind of combination of what we're talking about, that gut
yeah.
instinct and asking someone, but he was kind of asking someone inside himself almost. So that was a very random detour, but I just find these kind of things fascinating. When you think of everything that you've produced, all the projects you've worked on, products that have been launched out the door, is there one piece of work that you're most proud of?
I think probably this was a few years ago. Um so I was working for Amia, and Amia used to own Nectarcard before Sainsbury's bought it. And essentially we were given this challenge like 6 months to redesign the website and the mobile app. And the website was like this legacy website that'd been going for 15 years. And he wanted us to completely rethink uh, the app experience, the website, and that's every designer's dream. Who's been working on something, and you always have these ideas of what it should be, and then we were finally given that kind of that challenge, and I think I'm proud of it because of we had to, well, the whole company had to change the way they work. So we had to move from a very waterfall way of working into agile methodology and squads and all of that kind of stuff, new tools, like everything was changed. And I think the reason why I'm proud of it is not necessarily because of the output of it, but because of everything that I learned in that space of time, that has really informed my practice now. So the things that I talk about around communication and designers really communicating with product people and BAs, if you have BAs and all of that kind of stuff, and that proactivity, I honed those skills in that project. I think the other thing was we were really able to use data, be data driven in our approach by testing with customers, stuff that we all do now, testing with customers and validating with customers. And we were able to use that to justify stuff that was our gut instinct initially. So there were
Mm,
things. So when I say us, it was me and another. So I was the UI designer and I was working with a UX designer. And we had this agency that we employed. And I don't know, any in-house person who has experienced an agency being brought in to to help them will roll their eyes, where you've got this agency who want to do the cool ideas, and then we're the annoying people of, well, that won't work because of X, Y, and Z and the customers, and we're thinking about all the scenarios that we've had to go through. And there was this moment where the agency were really pushing for this design, and we were just like, this is not gonna work because of all this other stuff we need to put in here. And we basically had to prove that that design wouldn't work. And we need to go for the design that me and the UX designer came up with. And we had to validate that and prove that out. Um, um, Obviously we did user testing, but it was that stakeholder management as well, where you've
mm,
got these stakeholders who've paid all this money for this agency, and then you've got two young women coming in and say, well, actually no, this is the way it should work, and this is why, because we need to add this and this, and the UX is not going to work, and this is what the customer does. So yeah, it was a bit of a battle and a tedious time, but it was quite fun and there was an energy there. And I think one of my key takeaways from it is when everyone is focused on one goal or one outcome, it's really interesting how everyone kind of goes behind that, and the power of focus. And I find the most successful companies, or the companies with the best company culture, are the ones that have that level of focus and that clarity in their messaging and what they're trying to achieve, even if it's ambitious, you know, timelines and deadlines. When I was at Kazoo, Alex Chesterman, who was the CEO at that time, I remember he basically said to us, we're going to launch in 3 new markets and we're going to do that in 6 months. And everyone's just like, what? Oh my gosh, what? This is not going to happen. This is impossible. But we all got behind it and we all did it. And we achieved it in 6 months. Was it held together with sticky tape and post-its? Yes. But it happened and there was a focus and there was a real buzz. And I think that's what I look for in companies and teams and people that I work for, is that level of focus. So because you're all on the same page, it makes it a lot easier. It makes the drama a lot easier. And that, I think out of that, there's a level of creativity that comes out of it.
mm. You're absolutely right that rallying behind a common goal can really drive multiple teams and cross working, across multiple teams
Mm.
to a really great result. And a little bit of pressure on a deadline never. I was going to say never hurts. That's absolutely wrong. It absolutely does hurt sometimes, but if it's applied correctly and realistically, then it,
Mm.
it can be helpful. Sort of flipping the other way, is there a point or a project or a decision that you made that didn't go according to plan? And what did you learn from it when that happened?
Yes, it's people related. It's in the last kind of couple of years. It's both a good thing, a trait that I have, but also I'd say a negative trait, where I have a lot of empathy for someone and their situation, and I always believe that they will make it through and really believe in the potential of a person. So I had a situation at my current company where we had a person who I hired and they basically just weren't performing well. And I didn't listen to my gut instinct around whether I should extend their probation or like work out what those next steps are. I should have probably extended their probation, but I allowed them to pass the probation, and I kind of had this belief in my head and thought the gut instinct that I had to say, okay, they're just gonna make it through. We just need to do some tweaks with the coaching and stuff like that. I believe that they can kind of do it. And basically fast forward to around 7 months, we started having a lot of issues with that individual. And I think the wake up call for me was when it started affecting the rest of the team, and all the heavy lifting we needed to do and the team needed to do to get this person to start performing or to start building up evidence, to maybe manage that person out and things like that. So um I think, yeah, eventually that person left, so we didn't have to manage them out. But I think when I reflect on that situation, um, I kind of just sat on it, and I think what affects me the most when I think about that situation is how it affected the rest of the team. So it becomes not about me; it becomes about the team and all the energy that we had to invest in this person who just wasn't improving and wasn't quite right. And I reflect on it and said, oh, if only I made that decision earlier, if only I was a little bit more gung ho with that decision. So yes, still learning to look after to lean into the gut instinct. But yeah, I think sometimes my good nature and my empathy, I kind of overly lean into that when I probably should have thought more about the rest of the team rather than that individual. So that is a decision that I always kind of reflect on and think about and learn on. And it's really when I'm hiring and when I'm looking to hire, and what I say to even my team when they're interviewing is, if someone is definitely a no, or there's something, again, you can't quite shake it, it's probably a no, and there'll be other candidates. Don't feel like we need to kind of hold on to a candidate because they're okay. We want someone who's great and be great in the role. So yeah, that's my big learning in the last kind of couple of years or so.
Thank you for sharing that. I think as hiring managers, at some point in our careers, we've all had that mishire that we've then gone on to regret, not because of that person, but just how it's worked out, and
Yeah.
the mismatch or the misalignment with the team. And it's always a painful lesson, and it's always then really difficult when you're in the situation where you have to let someone go and you have to go through those conversations as well. So I appreciate you sharing that. Let's flip it back the other way again, to the more positive. Is there something outside of work that you're really proud of?
Um, So I recently bought a property on my own with no pretty much no help. And I'm kind of proud of the fact that I've done a whole load of DIY. I did some things I delegated out, but other stuff I did a whole load of DIY. And I think there is something again about taking your time and doing it yourself rather than trying to get someone else to do it. And that, I guess it still goes to that problem solving element of me, right? So a classic was, I wanted to repaint my front door, and then I was like, do I pay for it or do I do it myself? And I decided to do it myself. And you go through those motions of, you start this job and you think it's going to be quick, and then you're in the middle of it and you're like, why have I done this? Why didn't I pay for it? This is ridiculous. It's taking too long. Or it's a bigger job than you anticipated. So I decided to strip the door, and if anyone's done paint stripping before, it just leaves so much mess. So the mess was everywhere. Was I prepared for this? No. So it was, the paint chips and everything was all over the place, and I was just like, I don't know why I'm doing this now. I regret this. And then I go through the other side of actually painting. I'm finally painting now, and not being sure of the color that I've chosen. And then giving it a few coats, and now I'm like, okay, it looks all right. It looks all right now. And then I actually painted it, but changed, the letterbox and all the door furniture as well. To liking it, and it actually looking quite good. So it's a bit of an ordeal that I've gone through, and every other weekend I will do some DIY, attempt of DIY, and regret it as I go through the motions. But I think that's something that I'm quite proud of. Recently, I think another thing is I think just stuff that I've achieved that I didn't think I would achieve. I think it's going back to that overthinking, and basically what I do is don't think about things and just say yes to things. Which is how I ended up in speaking and doing public speaking. Is basically someone asked me and I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Didn't think about it until I needed to do my slides, which was by that time I can't back out of it. So yeah, and the fact that actually I think I'm actually quite a good speaker, and my speaking resonates with people, and my workshops that I've done have resonated with people, and it's just kind of grown and grown, and something that I wouldn't didn't expect to grow. I just thought I'd just do one talking event and then that will be it. So yeah, I'm quite proud of that, and the fact that it's taken me, and my career and my experience has taken me to different places in Europe, and all sorts of events that I wouldn't even, I'd be an attendee, not on the stage. So I think I'm quite proud of that. So two examples on each side of the spectrum.
Fantastic. And I completely recognize that midway part of a project where you're stood in utter chaos thinking, why on earth did I think I could do this or should do this? Like, there's a reason people do this and I pay them
Yeah,
to do it. And
yeah.
like, I'm fully at this moment in the project, I'm fully on board with paying someone else. Um, it always reminds me of as a teenager, I like maybe every other week I would move my room around, like put the bed in a different position and, take the stereo down or whatever. And it would be chaos in the middle of it. The bed would be in the middle of the room. Everything would be on top of the bed. And you'd be like, well, I have no energy left now. I just want to sleep. Like I can't, but I can't sleep because everything's in chaos.
Yeah.
So I get that completely. Um, do you find that, um, to a lesser degree, do you find that you hit that sort of midway point in projects in work as well, or does it go a little bit smoother?
Uh, it again, it depends on the people involved. I think you always when you create a project and it's new people, there's the almost the birthing pains of trying to work out how to work with each other. And there's always that feasibility side of things. Um, so I don't think there's a predictability. I think for me, it's the predictability almost comes at the end when you're in the kind of groove of
Mm,
designing, delivering, validating, and you've got like that established way of working. The kind of crazy bit happens at the beginning. And the project almost lives or dies by the prep that you do in that initial piece. Because if you don't do it at the beginning, you're going to either end up doing it in the middle, you're going to end up doing it at some point. And doing it in the middle of a project is more painful than doing it at the beginning. So I think that's what it is. But people are so unpredictable, and especially when some people thrive in pressure, some people panic in pressure, some people can handle multiple projects, other people just need one thing. So when you start changing those elements, then either people really dive into it and love it, or people panic, or even people just go in this death spiral loop of going round and round in circles of indecision. So yeah, I can never predict how someone's going to react in a project. There's quite a few projects like that I'm working on at the moment. And we're dealing with all different people aspects, but it always is that people element. Because you would know as well, right? There's all these frameworks. We can use all of these frameworks, but you can't predict that people element and the input element and how it's going to go. You can plan a workshop till you blue in the face. You don't know what's going to happen until you get into the room. And even then, you might have to completely scrap all the planning that you've done and just do something on the fly because it's not quite working. So I think, yeah, nothing's predictable anymore. I think the days
mm,
of predictability, even with companies, doesn't exist anymore. I think the fact we probably 5 years ago, you could stay at a company for 20, 30 years.
mm.
Um, a lot of people are staying at companies for 2, 3 years now, just because of the nature of the market and the way it is. But I don't think we're ever going to get that calmness that we had. I think getting used to just the stormy weather, and maybe a few breaks in the storm, but it's continuous the storms, is something that as design leaders we have to get used to, and we need to kind of get used to it because it just is what it is that we have to deal with these situations. You know?
Mm. Which brings me neatly onto, but before that, side note, Death Spiral of Indecision. What a fantastic album name. I mean, like, I can even hear that music, right?
I mean,
But
you could have that for free.
thank you. I'm going to go and register deathspiralofindecision.com when we finish this recording. Um, it's a catchy one, easy enough to fit on a poster. Um, when you talk about like design leaders now needing to face almost kind of continual change, what do you see now as being the biggest challenge for the creative industry, specifically, your discipline, and where is that going to go?
Good question. I think in companies and businesses right now, they're always looking at profitability. They're always more so than before. They're looking at that bottom line. So as a design leader, you have to be able to justify yourself and your existence, but also justify your existence of your team. And I think another challenge that we have is what we've seen over the last few years is that shift of previously my manager would have been a design director or a CDO. Now my manager is a product person. So as a design leader, we need to have product sense. But we need to have that business side of things and we need to think almost like a product person, so that we can have those conversations with the person we report into. And also like depending on that CPO, chief product officer, they might really understand design or they might not. I've had both times where the designers just do screens and they don't want to get designers involved in anything else. Then your challenge is how do you get designers in earlier in that kind of scenario. Then you have other kind of chief product officers who really get design and want you to get involved, and it's like almost how do you root yourself into that, but you've got the pressure on the team because you're involved in everything. So you've got that kind of organizational pressure, and that, I guess, continuous spotlight on you as a design leader, right? So you've got to be able to always show your worth almost. And it sounds horrible, but that's what it is. But also you need your team to understand that business aspect of things. Because I think before, design teams could really just get into the craft and really love the craft and get into the craft. But now craft is important. But actually now we need to have some business sense and we need to start articulating to the business and working with product people. So quite closely and being able to articulate it. So the demands on a designer is less about being a pure craft practitioner and more having that kind of product sense as well, and being able to articulate it to other people in the room, which is not a skill that we learn at design school or at boot camps, right? So we have to then learn these skills on the job. So there's that within an organization, and then as a design leader, what we need to be thinking about is the future. And any leader is always thinking about that future. So how is my team going to scale, succession planning, all of that kind of stuff. But now we've also got the pressure of new technology, and AI is a buzzword on everyone's tongues, but execs are looking at AI and what they're looking at AI in terms of cost savings. So as a design leader, we now need to think about the way we do things, our design processes, but how can we create those efficiencies, and almost preempt that before the C-suite comes to you and says, should we be using AI in our processes? I've heard various stories from design leaders where C-suite is insisting that they have to use AI as part of their process and report on it. Other companies are a little bit more relaxed, but to shortcut back to the end of your question, what the future looks like, I think the future is leaner teams, probably going back to a more generalist style of design teams where you have design teams that are generalists and you'll have a content designer maybe, and you'll have a researcher, but you won't have those big kind of teams that we used to have. And I see design kind of going back to almost that end-to-end design that we were doing before we were embedded in these Scrum teams on these features, because you have less designers, but in theory, you should have more capacity to look at that end-to-end. So I think we'll be leaning more into that service design space and thinking about
Mm,
that experience end-to-end. And as designers, we'll really have to think about all of those touch points and how you create a consistent experience, because it won't just be about a website, it won't just be about my phone or an app. It will be, how am I experiencing that brand in the store, from my car with a CarPlay to the device, all of this other stuff, and also how AI is cannibalizing the internet as well. And because people aren't really going to websites anymore, you could just search and ask that question. So that means that a website is not necessarily a picture or things that you interact with. It's probably going to be text and copy. Um,
mm.
so you'd have to brand that and think about that experience. So I think the interface that we know it now is going to evolve and change. And designers and design leaders are going to have to think about that and think about that experience. I think also the other side of it is ethics is going to come into that play as well, because we as designers are always going to almost going to be looked to keep that human element, and asking those questions about that human element, and asking those questions around, should we automate this? Is this quite right? Should we be doing this? Or does it make more sense that this bit is human and we automate this? So I think we'll be asking more of those kind of questions. Um, but I see it as not necessarily a bad thing. I see it as going back to what designers used to do. Spending less time on design systems and the UI and more times of that experience and the end to end and the sketching.
And like with everything that you've just sort of said, and thinking about the rapid change in tech, and therefore the impact that that's having across all industries, but especially right now negatively across all the creative industries.
Mm.
If we think of two groups of people, those coming into the industry at junior level, and those that have been in the industry for a while but have been out of work for quite a while,
Yeah.
what's your one piece of advice for each of those people?
Oh, I think the first group, which, coming into the industry, I think it's all about those soft skills. That's what we're looking for when we're trying to hire someone new. That those collaboration and communication skills. So I'd really work on harnessing that, like how you articulate design decisions, how you then communicate that. Because a lot of the time as a designer, you're in a room and you're the only designer in the room, and then you've got to talk through your designs, and how do you work with, and if I was a junior designer, I would see if you can find a friend who's a developer or an engineer and start working with them, so you can start understanding feasibility, you can start understanding how to work with someone that's thinking about a solution in a different way, to you,
Mm,
and negotiating that, because that's a skill that you're going to have to learn, and if you hone that skill before you get a job, it will make it a lot easier. I think if you're out of work for a long time, um, it's a difficult one. I think I read a stat that the average time that it takes to find a job now is a year. So I think brace yourself that it's going to take a year to 18 months. I think don't take it personally as well. I think what works is definitely really spending time with yourself and understanding, why would a person hire you over another person? What makes you stand out and really lean into that brand and shape that brand? Because that's what's going to get you through the door. But it's also going to allow you to work out what roles you should be applying to and what you shouldn't.
mm,
Because the ones that are the match and the fit, are you're more likely to get that interview, you're more likely to get through the door. And then the other piece of advice for both groups is it's all about your network. So network. Speak to as many people as possible. Really just get yourself out there and just have those conversations and get advice from as many people. But that network is also going to be a support system when you're feeling down as well. So those are my pieces of advice that I would give both groups.
Fantastic. I've got one question left. It's the last question. It's the same question that every guest gets asked right at the end. Are you, Vanessa, still awaiting approval?
Oh, no. I just do it. I just get on with things now. I ask for approval after I've done something. So if I get told off, then maybe I shouldn't have done it. But yeah, I just kind of go for it now. I don't think about things anymore. I just kind of go for it. I think I approach things in a very experimental way. So just try something and see if it works. If it doesn't, I'll try another thing. So yeah, I've leaned into the problem solver aspect of myself. And that's how I get through life.
Love it. Fantastic. This is your chance now. How can people get in touch with you? What events or products have you got coming up that you want to promote? The floor is yours.
Yeah, so the best way is probably LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I've also got a website which is vanessabennett.com, and there you'll be able to see any events that I'm doing. But you'll also be able to see some of my writing. So if you like some of the stuff I said, I've got quite a few articles up so you can read those, but you can also see previous speaking gigs that I've done as well. So yeah, all that information. I'm on the internet. Search me. You will find me somewhere.
Fantastic. And I should flag, and obviously this will all be in the bio as well, but it's Vanessa with an E, not Vanessa with an, it's not Vanessa, it's Venessa,
Yes,
which I made the
yes.
mistake of. So I apologize for that on the original calendar invites. Um, Thank you so much for joining me on this. It's been a really insightful episode. I'm sure people will get a lot from this, and I really appreciate your honesty and your time.
Thank you, Adam. It's been great.
If today's conversation got you thinking about your own growth as a creative leader, then my program, Supercharge Creative Leaders, might well be the next step for you. It's a 4-week cohort designed to help those in leadership positions and those aspiring to be in the leadership positions to lead at a world-class level. You'll learn how to communicate with impact, grow your confidence, and lead teams that thrive, all without losing your creativity. It's a mix of pre-recorded video sessions, live Q&As with me and the rest of your cohort, and an incredible community of peers who will support you along the way. People who've already been through the course have gone on to win new roles, land promotions, get huge multi-million-dollar pitches, and they all put it down to the course and the confidence it gave them. So if you're ready to get noticed, get promoted, or finally step into that dream role, join the next cohort. Head to growwithadamjennings.com and sign up to Supercharged Creative Leaders. I can't wait to start working with you. Awaiting Approval is a Cordial Fox production, hosted by Adam Jennings, produced by Adam Jennings and Jasmine Egner.